Hey everyone, it's Hannah. I wanted to quickly ask if you are enjoying the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review. It goes a long way in getting the show in front of other listeners. If you listen on a platform that doesn't do reviews, please follow us on social media, like the show, or leave a comment. Thank you. We love you guys, and we hope you enjoy the show. You're listening to The Tales We Tell, a podcast about spooky stories, unsolved mysteries, and local lore. I'm your host, Hannah Parch.
And I'm Katy.
Welcome back. Oh, it's a whiskey day.
It's been a whiskey week.
Yeah.
It's been good, but it's been rough.
Yeah. It's a whiskey weekend for me. Yeah. And actually, this whiskey is brought to us by my parents, who sometimes when I am at home, I like to think of it as a bribe me to go to the ABC store for them. I say my parents, it's just my dad who does this. And because to pick up something for him, and as a disclosure, my dad's not an alcoholic who doesn't want to get he just wants to stay home and watch football.
Yeah,
he's not some weird shady person.
Oh, he's not afraid what the neighbors will say if they see him at no.
He's just
no. I just took it as that's just another stop or another chore.
Yeah.
That was one great thing about living in New Orleans is they have the liquor in the grocery store. I don't have to make an extra stop.
Well, yeah. So I also, for me, had to go pick up Diet Cokes for myself because my parents have Dr. Pepper at their house.
Hell yeah. I don't drink a lot of soft drinks, but that's what I drink.
But currently, my parents are enjoying flavored whiskey. They like an apple flavored whiskey, which is not my cup of tea. And I mentioned, I was like, oh, well, I have to pick up something for myself anyways because it's a whiskey episode and I got to get it before Sunday. And my dad was like, oh, well, if you'll go and get something for me, I'll just
pay for yours.
Yep. And since you can't do it with someone else's card, he just gave me a bunch of cash and sent me along the way. So this episode is sponsored by my dad. And the giant bottle of whiskey I bought with his money.
Speaking of dads and flavored whiskey, did I tell you that while my dad was here this summer, I introduced him to Screwball?
Ooh, no you did not.
Yeah, so for anyone who doesn't know, Screwball, it's peanut butter whiskey. And I'd had it once, maybe twice before, at a bar. And it's one of those, this is really neat for one drink.
Yeah.
And then let's go back to normal stuff.
Yeah.
It's a fun novelty to be like, oh, look, they've got the peanut butter whiskey, a cocktail. Yeah. I'll have one of those.
Yeah. But maybe don't buy a whole bottle of it.
No. It was the only reason we got it was because it came in this cute little, it looked like a miniature, drink can.
Aww.
And it was enough, just enough for us both to have basically a peanut butter old-fashioned.
Oh, nice.
So we're like, yeah, this is neat. I'm glad we experienced it, but
This is nice.
glad this is all. Glad there's none left.
Oh, man. I have my own reasons for needing the whiskey for this episode, but the other reason is it was just a terrible football weekend for our family. I was telling Katy before we started recording, I went to my parents for the NC State Notre Dame game, which I don't know if anyone listening is football fans, but NC State just got absolutely destroyed. There's also an hour suspension of the game because of lightning, so we all just hung out while it rained and lightninged. Our $10 million scoreboard, which is brand new, got hit by lightning, which was super fun for everyone. So we were all just drowned rats by the end of the day. Went home to watch the Carolina App State game, because the other thing about State fans is we love to watch Carolina lose. We also love to pull for other in-state schools. Love an App State game. That damn thing went into 2 overtimes, and Carolina won. So just not not great. And it rained again while I was at the liquor store. So I'd already put on my dry clothes and I got soaked again.
Well, I was planning to bring you a bottle of wine.
Well,
because, we went to the winery and I was going to bring you some wine as thank you for keeping my cat alive. Except, we went and everything was fine. But I was there with my mother-in-law and my aunt-in-law. And the guy who was doing the tasting, wonderful. Love you, Mr. Ray. But he was real chatty. And Nat was like, keeping the conversation going. Meanwhile, I'm like, Shelton's somewhere taking care of Critter. Like, I know he's fine, but he probably would like to not have to be on his own. Can we, get this moving?
carry on.
And so I was like, okay, well, the plan is buy a bottle and cheese plate, and we're going to go sit and enjoy it. And while we were tasting, because they've got these cute little gazebos, going to sit in one.
Yeah.
Nope, it started raining. Luckily, they've got some, covered patio seating.
Yeah.
And so we ended up sitting there, and that was all good and well. And Walker really enjoys playing in the rain now. So, I'll hold him, and we'll go put our hands out. And I'm like, okay, you want to catch the raindrops? And then after a couple fall on us, oh, we're getting wet. And I run away, and he giggles and thinks it's the funnest game ever. And then we go back and catch more raindrops.
Right.
It was great until it started raining sideways.
Yes, the sideways
So we had to go inside. Thankfully, we were almost done, but also, it was, okay, now we're just kind of waiting for it to lighten up enough to make a mad dash to the cars, which are not close.
Yep. Yeah.
And so I just did not have time to...
That's totally fine.
Purchase new wine.
As you can see, my parents took well care of me in the alcohol department. They also bought me a bottle of wine this weekend, so. And I'm going back there next weekend because my nephew is playing in the band. He's a freshman in high school, and their high school is getting to march with the NC State band.
Cute.
I know, it's so exciting. I have to do this one announcement before I forget it because I didn't write it down. And also I'm verbally reminding you now because I meant to do this off mic. Telling everyone. On the 20th, which is...
The 20th of September.
Of September, yes.
For anyone who's listening to this
so
in the future.
On September 20th, if anyone wants to get on Facebook or probably their website, you can go to New Bern Live, and Katy and I will be doing an interview.
Put that in my phone. Because I had completely forgotten.
Yeah, sorry. I definitely meant to remind you about that earlier.
What time is that?
10 o'clock.
In the morning.
In the morning, yes. Also, it's at 10 a.m. Tune in. I'm sure you can watch it after that on Facebook. Katy, you cannot. You have to be there at 10.
Yeah, I can do that.
Not optional for you. But yeah, so it's New Bern Live. I think if you just look that up on Facebook, it comes up. And I think you can Google it and find their website that way. And I'm sure it'll be posted there. But they're being very gracious and doing a little interview with us. And we hope that... What is happening?
We hope that you can all tune in for it. And if you can't at the time, you can also, they do get posted later on.
Yes.
Usually the same day. Sometimes it's next day.
Yes.
And I think they do have, if you can't, watch or something, they have the audio that you can...
Oh, okay. Nice.
Listen to.
Yeah. Sorry, I had something pop up on my screen. That's why I got distracted. Okay. My next announcement is a shout out because this episode is a listener suggestion.
Yes, I love these.
Which is also my out because if you get mad at me for anything, I'm going to redirect you to Sara. Because
Sarah.
Sara recommended this.
Are you going to be in trouble?
So she was the one who gave me a bunch at once, and she said they might be a little rough. They might be whiskey episodes. And truthfully, I looked at this one, and I did a cursory glance of it, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that one because I was like, oh, that does sound really rough. But then when I was looking over it last week, when I started figuring out what I wanted to do, this guy that I'm going to tell you about he's exactly the kind of person that we would talk about. So we're just gonna
talking about someone, discuss his mental health. Is that what you mean? Because that's, I know, the big theme of ours.
Yeah.
That's become a theme.
Yeah.
Like, not at all what we set out to do, I don't think.
Yeah.
But
yeah, not so much. He's not one of the ones where I feel like his mental health necessarily explains a lot. He's more of a piece of shit.
Okay.
With the most fragile ego and masculinity that it's just made of the thinnest glass that you could possibly imagine. And he has
breathe on it and it shatters.
Yes, and he decides to make it everyone's problem.
I've been dealing with that all week.
Oh no. I hope not.
I mean, granted, he's a toddler, but
oh no.
I think it was Friday night. Yeah, it was Friday night. It was my birthday. And it was almost his bedtime. And, he had just been a terror. Because for the most part, he's been okay. But he just has his bouts of fussiness. And sometimes it's a couple of minutes. Sometimes he's just inconsolable for, an hour or more. Yeah. I was just like, oh my God, just go to bed. I'm done. Turn it off for the night. We'll try again tomorrow. I don't even know what to do.
Unplug it or turn it off and turn it back on again.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, he's going through a phase 2 right now that dad is the best. He wants dad all the time, which is fine because it means I don't have to hold him all the time. But I went to go try and get him, and he was chewing on one of his toys, and I looked, and I'm like, oh, blood.
Oh.
Yay. One of his teeth just fully,
Oh, that's good. Okay.
Through.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I was thinking blood. Bad.
No. I mean, when it's... Yes and no.
I don't know anything about being a parent.
when you know where their blood is coming from, and you're kind of, expecting it, and it's just a little bit...
Yes.
Then yes.
Okay. Blood, good.
It's the fact that I knew that he's had several teeth coming in, and that's why we put off the doctor, too, because it's he's totally fine now.
Yeah.
But now he's fussy, and I know he's teething.
Yeah.
Is it just teething, or is he sick? And anyway, he was being just a real little butt nugget. And then I saw that one of his teeth actually popped through this time, finally.
Yay.
And then he was a totally different kid the next day. Everything was great on Saturday.
Great.
And then he was a nightmare demon this morning. Oh my gosh.
Anyways, well, I hope that...
But I hope anything that mildly inconvenienced Walker, he made it everyone's problem.
Well, yeah.
That's where I was going with that.
I also have some content warnings, and... because, I like to not give away anything to you, you don't get the content warnings. So I'm just going to record them at the beginning, and you just kind of have to deal with it.
All right, so we're cutting in content warnings
here.
Now.
So the content warning is for child death and some animal abuse / death. So... very sorry about that. Okay.
That's definitely a long enough pause for Jack to go in and cut.
Yeah. All right. So, everyone, get your whiskey and or spirit and or
comfort drink or food
of choice ready. Oh, also, we have a producer now. His name is Floyd.
He's sitting in the chair and everything.
I know, and he's watching the recording.
He's got a big smile on his face, so he must be doing really well.
And he's dropped his pipe.
Well, this is a no-smoking studio.
This is true. I went to Michael's today, and I adopted a tiny miniature... He's not tiny. He's... How tall would you say he is? 2 feet? 2.5 feet?
Yeah, he's not quite a meter.
Okay. Metric system.
I'm a scientist.
He's a meter tall skeleton. He was on sale for $12. And I love him, and his name is Floyd, and he is our producer now. He's sitting in the computer chair, and we will be turning to him for all producer needs during the recording. So just be aware.
He needs his own iPad.
He really does. We'll get Jarek's in here. Okay. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Andrew Philip Kehoe was born February 1st, 1872. He was the first son of Irish immigrant parents who moved to the United States in the 1840s during the potato famine. Ever heard of it?
Familiar. Vaguely.
Okay. Great. His father's name was Philip, and his mother's name, I think, was Mary. Everyone is named Mary.
If it's not their first name, it's their middle name.
Yeah.
Or Marie.
Yes. So Philip, when he came over, he settled in, I didn't look up how to say it, he settled in Michigan.
Okay.
He got married, and he had 2 daughters by his first wife in 1860 and 1862, and then she died. The wife just died. And so he immediately got remarried and had 4 more daughters by his second wife between 1862 and 1870. So, like, literally within the same year, got married, started having babies again. And then Philip was born. So Philip is the 7th child and the first son. And then there were 2 more daughters and a son born after him. So there's a total of 10 children. I did read some sources that said 13, but at that point, 10, 13, who cares? Who cares? There's a ton of children, and most of them are girls. Yeah. And Philip is the oldest boy. Or sorry, Andrew is the oldest boy. I wrote this wrong. Andrew was born. You know what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Is everyone following? I've got a typo in my first little paragraph. Oh,
You're
my gosh.
still soggy from yesterday.
I am. Okay. Sorry. Andrew is the oldest. Andrew's born. Ignore that I said Philip. I got them confused a lot because of the middle name thing. I don't know why. So as a child, Andrew was very introverted, probably because he had a billion siblings. Mm-hmm. He was also interested in electricity, and he tinkered with small gadgets and mechanisms around their farm because they lived on a farm.
Well, I mean, with that many mouths, you got to grow your own food.
Yeah, and I think you need
your own grocery store.
Yeah, they were. I think they were exactly what you would imagine an Irish family of 10 to be, where it was like they weren't wealthy, and their house wasn't small, but it felt small because they had
there's lots of people, probably lots of noise. Yes,
and so they lived on a farm, and everyone worked all the time, and so Philip was just didn't talk to people a lot. Andrew. Oh my gosh. You know what?
I'll keep you straight.
Thank you. I'm literally reading the notes off of here. Okay. I'm still saying the names wrong. All right. Andrew. So
how many of these did you have before I...
0. It's my first drink of the day. So as Andrew got older, he would come out of his shell more and become involved in local activities like community theater and whatever. And he also gleaned a lot from his father in terms of social and political beliefs, which is, like, not uncommon,
yeah,
I think.
Well, I mean, yeah, like, you ask a kid in, like, middle school or something,
yeah,
like, if you could vote, would you vote for this party or that party?
Yeah.
They're going to say whatever their parents are.
Yeah, because that's what you hear at home, and how else are you going to hear about politics or form an opinion?
And also, if you're in middle school, just don't trouble yourself with that yet.
Yeah, you're far away from voting. Who cares? So, Philip, I am right on this one, was an influential member. So the father, Philip the father, was an influential member of the community, and he was pretty opinionated and vocal about his opinions. He believed that farmers should be in control of their own destinies and should control the market. and he believed that working individuals should control how the government spent their taxes. So, like, not really super controversial.
No, not
beliefs.
too radical.
Yeah, like, but pretty, like, conservative, whatever, fine. Nothing really radical, but he was just outspoken about that.
Well, I mean, he's also not saying, like, not actively hating one group of people, so I'm like, yeah, I'll listen to you, sure.
Except maybe, like, the government, but, yeah, I feel like we all really
it's
don't
okay.
like that.
Yeah. I think everyone hates the government a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. So, in 1890, when Andrew was 18, his mother died after a long, slow decline in her health.
And she was the second wife.
Yes. She had a, quote, disease of the nervous system, and all I could really tell from the sources was, like, she just kind of got weaker and weaker and couldn't really do much, and then it says she...
Long-term low-dose poisoning.
God, I hope not. Well, it said she eventually became completely paralyzed and then died. So
some poisons will do that.
Well, why would you poison? You've got a family of 10 children. You need literally every hand you can. Don't go killing people.
Also, didn't people used to, like, drink mercury as medicine?
You're true. Okay. So maybe accidental.
Yeah.
Yeah, she might have had a cold one day, and then they're like, well, take this mercury. It'll make you feel better. And then she continued to take the mercury.
People, like, in the last couple of years, like, also being like, ooh, colloidal silver. Right?
I actually...
Like, when COVID started, when wasn't that?
I mean, when COVID started, people were taking all sorts of things, like heartworm medication meant for horses, and I actually met a lady once who put how do you say it? Colloidal silver in her eyes to dissolve her cataracts. That did not work. That's not how cataracts work. No. But
it's also not how metals work.
Yeah, I don't really know but that's what she told me she did, and that's what I wrote down.
Okay.
And that's what I told the doctor.
And did the doctor go do a heavy medical sigh of...
Yeah, she did. Oh. Okay, so Andrew's mother has died. Her name was also Mary, by the way. So Mary the second has died.
Or did she have the ALS?
I don't know. Truly, anything. It could have been anything. Because Philip cannot be single for any
more than a minute.
Moment of his life, and he is now 60 at this point. He very quickly remarries a much younger woman named Frances Wilder.
I like that name.
Frances?
Frances Wilder.
Oh, nice. Yeah, the whole thing. Frances was a young widow, and she was raising her own children. And one source said that she was 3 years younger than Andrew. But that would mean that she was 15 at this point, which does not track with being a widow who had her own children. Especially based...
how many children does she have?
Well, it said children, so more than one. And based on what we learned last week about the average age of Irish women getting married in the late 1800s, 15-year-olds would not be getting married. Mm-mm. Another source, meaning a death certificate that I found online, where I couldn't see the actual scan of the certificate wouldn't load, but the transcription of the information loaded. That said that she was born in 1859, which would make her 13 years older than Andrew.
That's better.
So I'm going with that one. Still very young for...
a 60-year-old.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So either way, Andrew hated her, and the feeling was kind of mutual. She was like, well, if you don't like me, I don't like you. I feel like she was just like, I'm just going to return your feelings towards you.
I'm not here for you. You're an adult at this point.
Yeah.
Because he's 18, right?
Yes, he's 18.
So, yeah, no, you're an adult. Like, why are you even still living at home?
Yes. And that's probably kind of exactly the conversation that happened, because Andrew pretty quickly moved out after they got married. And after he left home, it's a little unclear exactly what he did. It is thought that he went to Michigan State, where he studied electrical engineering. And then he moved to St. Louis to continue his studies somewhere there. But while he was living in St. Louis, he had some kind of accident. And we know this because of his sister. One of his sisters would later report about this accident. And she said she had no idea if it was from an electric shock or if he fell or something. But what we do know is that it probably caused some kind of significant head injury because he was in a coma for 2 weeks.
Oof.
Yeah. And then he just came out of the coma and recovered and carried on with his life. So, but we've talked about head traumas.
Mm-hmm. How you can affect and change your personality.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So he stayed in St. Louis for a little while, and then he moved throughout the Midwest, quote, honing his electrical knowledge, which I assume just means working different jobs. And he worked in Iowa for a little bit, and then in 1905, he returned to his father's home. And so Andrew is now 33, and he's moving back home. While he had been gone, Frances and Philip had a child of their own named Irene. She is 3 at this point.
I love that Philip pretty much only makes boys.
I mean girls.
Yeah,
I know. Yeah, he has a girl sperm. Mm-hmm. I am also just thinking of those people that, think that the inability to have a son is the woman's fault. Yeah. And then it's well...
So you mean Henry VIII? You mean?
Yeah. And I'm just let's look at a case study here of this man who could almost exclusively only sire girls.
I have a friend who her husband is the opposite. She's got 5 boys, and she's a professional makeup artist.
Oh,
she's just launched her own brush line too.
Damn.
And she's worked in operas and theaters, and she's very talented, very girly girl, the epitome of girly and feminine. And she's got 5 boys. 5 boys.
Jeez.
And now she finally has a daughter. And I think they're done.
Good.
I think it was one of those we're going until we get a girl.
Yeah, I had a friend like that who they had 3 boys, and they were we're gonna try until we have a girl, and then they ended up with 5 boys, and then they're we're gonna stop until we have more. But yeah. Whew. So Frances and Philip now have Irene, just 3-year-old, and all of their other children must be grown by now. So now that it's just
because Andrew, there was only 3 siblings younger than him.
Yeah. And he's 33.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all of the other ones must be grown.
And married. And
I don't know how old Frances's other children were. So maybe her other children are still around, but
yeah.
I don't know. The house surely must be a bit quieter when he comes back.
Yeah. Well, and if his dad was 60 when he was 18.
And now he's 33.
Yeah.
So he's much older.
Ancient.
Yes.
Especially for this time.
Yes. And also...
And if he's a farmer, that's hard work. That's hard on the body.
Yes. And my next point...
He must be, riddled with arthritis.
Gosh, Katy,
I'm going to take a
drink! I literally have right here, he had really bad arthritis.
You didn't write that he was riddled with it.
Well, no, but he couldn't walk.
Yeah.
So his health had declined to the point where he was almost completely dependent on Frances. Parentheses, he had really bad arthritis. So when Andrew came home, Andrew basically took over the farm work. And his hatred for Frances festered. I love using that word. And his relationship with his father just worsened. So Andrew's just hating everyone, which I don't know, man. And okay. He reminds me of someone. I'll tell you later because I don't want to offend someone who listens who knows who I'm talking about. And also the person I'm thinking of did not follow the same path. But like some people I feel like just choose to be miserable all the time. And I feel like that's what this is, where he's just like, oh, I fucking hate everyone. And it's like, okay, but do you have to? Like...
So I lost my mom when I was 10.
Mm-hmm.
I was a child.
Mm-hmm.
He was 18 when his mother died.
Mm-hmm.
He's a mostly grown adult.
Yeah.
Especially, like, in this time, like, you grew up faster.
Yeah.
I was not a fan of the idea of my dad dating for a long time.
Right.
Like, the idea of my mom being replaced kind of a thing. Like, that was a huge issue for me.
Yeah.
Again, I was 10.
Yeah.
And also, you know, I was an only child.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any, like, siblings to kind of, like, talk to and commiserate and, like, help me through my issues with that.
You were the only person going through that specific thing.
Yeah. And, like, if I had an older sibling or a younger sibling or whatever, like, just might have been able to talk to him and work it out with, whatever. The main thing is, he is an adult.
Mm-hmm.
And he needed to get over his issues of, like, okay, if you're 18, like, still, sure, you're young, like, you can be pissed that your dad moved on so quickly after your mom died.
Yes.
Be mad at your dad, not the woman. It's not like she came in. It's not like she killed, you know, your mom.
Yeah.
And also, you're 33 now.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
well,
it's been 15 years.
And no one, to my
Let
knowledge,
it go.
no one's forcing you to live there.
Yeah.
Like, you could have stayed in fucking Iowa.
I'm 34 now, I think. Yeah. I'm 34 now, and I'm more than fine if my dad finds somebody. Like, I'd be happy for him.
Yeah. And even if you weren't...
As long as she's cool and not, like, I don't know, a total, you know...
But it's like, even if you weren't...
For gold-digging witch.
I mean, if she was, like, 3 years older than you... Or...
I'd be like, gross.
I mean, we would be judging.
I would say gross on both of them. I wouldn't hate her. I'd just be like, you are gross.
But I feel like you also wouldn't let it, like, ruin your life and dictate your
it's
your
not gonna,
mood.
It's not going to be my entire personality.
Yeah.
And I'm going to clarify too that it's not gross that she likes my dad because there's nothing wrong with him. Well, there's lots of things wrong with him, but we don't have an episode for that. No, it's gross that someone 3 years older than me would want to be with someone that much older than them.
How old's your dad?
He was born in 51.
Oh, okay. So 2 years older than my dad. Mm-hmm. So 72 this year. I do the math. My dad turned 70 this year. Big year for him.
My father-in-law turned 70. Is turning on Monday? Tuesday.
Oh, okay. Big year for our dads. Yeah, I was gonna say. Okay.
Anyways. Yes. This is his entire identity now. Yeah. Hating these people and their relationship. Yeah. Like, why did you come back then? Just leave.
Yeah, like...
You've got, like, 7 sisters at least, right?
Yeah. I think he's got 8 sisters.
Yeah.
Plus Irene.
Yeah, and Irene, plus Francis's kids.
Mm-hmm.
They're probably married to men who could potentially come in and help take care of things. Like, you've got other siblings. Like, if you were that miserable in this place, there are other people that can still come in and take care of your dad.
Yeah. My only thought is...
I don't even know what this guy has done, and I'm already mad at him.
My only thought is that he was thinking that he was going to be inheriting the farm because he was the oldest son. And that maybe he wanted, I don't know, to start taking care of it then, or to, like, start putting things in order then. I don't know.
Well, make sure he knew how things were running.
Yeah.
So that when he officially took over.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Okay. So on Sunday, September 17th of 1911, Frances went into the kitchen to make lunch. And I'm sorry, I forgot. This goes from like 0 to 9,000 in a second. When she bent over to light the pilot light on the stove, a huge flame exploded out of the stove and engulfed her upper body. And so she is on fire and screaming and like running around because she's on fire. Mm-hmm. So the only people in the house, presumably, are Philip, mm-hmm. who can't really walk, Irene, who's I think like a
young child.
Yes, she's young at this point. She's not a toddler, but she's mm-hmm. still a small child. And Andrew. So Andrew gets to her first. He sees a very horrific scene. And he thinks fast, and he takes a pitcher of water and throws it on her. Okay.
Is it not water?
It is water.
Okay.
But, Katy, if you are to have a fire happen on your stove, mm-hmm. an oil-based fire, how do you put it out?
Not with water.
Why not?
It makes it bigger.
Yes.
It's worse. So, I've never learned that particular science, but I have learned that lesson.
I was trying to think of where... I was like, oh yeah, we all learned that in kitchen safety.
I learned that in the real world.
Did you really?
But trial by fire.
Trial and error.
Trial by fire.
I don't know. I feel like I learned it in school. That you're supposed to put like baking soda or something if you get like a grease fire.
Smother it too, I think, is another one.
Oh yeah, that's probably smart. So the fire that had caught onto Frances was an oil-based fire of some kind. And so when he threw the water on her, it essentially, because water does not mix with oil, it essentially spread the oil into a finer layer, causing it to spread to her entire body instead of just to her upper body. So they eventually did put the fire out, and Frances was still alive, although she has been horrifically burned. And the book that I was reading on this went into far more detail than I needed to know about like what happens to the human body when it's set on fire. It was like, this is the temperature at which skin melts. And I was like, oh, thanks.
I told you about my brother.
Yeah.
His tattoos are melted, like literally melted.
Yeah. And I would just like to take this opportunity to put on the record, if I ever catch on fire, mm-hmm. just find a gun. I don't, like, I've had enough really...
Not a hose, but a gun?
I've had enough really bad sunburns. I cannot imagine the constant amount of pain that is, and I can't, Okay, so Frances is still alive. The Kehoes don't have a phone in their house because it's 1911. Their neighbors do. So Philip takes Andrew.
Philip can't do much.
Philip can't do anything. I literally wrote Philip in here. What the is wrong with me? Andrew takes Irene to the neighbors.
Does not need to see her mother.
Andrew's
like that.
got to, yeah. So he takes her to the nearest neighbor's house to use their phone. And this neighbor, her name is Hetty Murphy. And she remembered receiving a calm, nonchalant knock on her door. She said it was like he was coming over to ask to borrow a cup of sugar. Mm-hmm. And she answers the door, and Andrew asks if she would mind calling a doctor for them. And she says, sure, is someone sick? And he says, no, Franny got burned. And she said he said it like she had just poured some boiling water on her foot or something. And he also asked her, while she was calling the doctor, if she would call a priest. And as you can imagine...
She's probably like...
You're like, why?
For a burn?
Yeah, for what? So as you can imagine, the doctor could not really do anything. The priest was like the better call. And Frances died the following day. Which was not fast enough, in my opinion.
No, that sounds like hours and hours of unnecessary agony.
No one, like, thought it at the time, but later people would speculate, because they don't know what caused the stove to malfunction.
Mm-hmm. But you have someone who's been tinkering with things for years and years.
Yes, an electrical engineer.
And is an electrical engineer.
And they also speculated as to, would Andrew have known that throwing water on that kind of fire would have made it worse?
Well, you could argue, too, that he wouldn't have known that that's how she caught on fire. Mm-hmm. It could have just been one of those, like, oh, someone's on fire. Like, if Jarrett came running in here right now on fire, my first instinct would be water.
Yeah.
Actually, I'd probably grab the cloaks. And
I was going to say, I would grab that blanket. And, yeah. But yeah, I feel like we need an emergency plan for if someone catches on fire.
But yeah, no, because I wouldn't know that, he was in the kitchen frying something and the grease got too hot and caught on fire and whatever. Like, I don't think anyone's first reaction, unless you are, like, witnessing the fire, would be, better not throw water on that.
Yeah.
So.
But also he hated Frances. Yeah. So, and it's like...
Oh, 100%. I think he did it. Like, I think he 100% tampered with the stove. Mm-hmm. And, maybe he knew not to throw water. Maybe he didn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I think he 100%.
Yeah. So, seemingly unaffected by this horrific death of his stepmother, or perhaps sensing that his elderly, in poor health father would now quickly deteriorate in the wake of this tragedy, and he would, like, inherit the house, Andrew very quickly decided that he wanted a wife now. So he began courting an old college girlfriend named Ellen Nellie Price. And on May 14th of 1912, which is not, like, less than a year after Frances died, Andrew and Nellie got married.
Now Nellie can take care of his dad.
Yes. And then on January 8th of 1915, Philip died. So Philip was not long for this. And now I can stop trying to... Now there's no more Philip, so I don't have to say Philip anymore. Jeez. You can also look at your dossier, because your first picture is a picture of Philip and Nellie.
Who and Nellie?
Andrew and Nellie. What's wrong with me?
This must be when they're older.
Yeah, well, he was... Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's when... I guess, based on...
He's not a bad-looking dude.
No, he's not, unfortunately.
He looks like he's, what, in his 40s here? 50s?
Yeah, well, he was 40... He was 40 when he got married. Mm-hmm. So he must be in his late 40s there. In 1919, so 6 years after they got married, Andrew and Nellie moved into Nellie's childhood home, which was an 80-acre farm in Bath, Michigan. They purchased this farm from Nellie's uncle, and they did this by selling Andrew's father's farm and using that money as a down payment, and then taking out a mortgage for the rest.
Okay. So he did inherit.
Yes.
Okay, because I was like, wait a second. After all of this, like, he came back with the, I thought, understanding. Okay.
Yes.
So he just upgraded.
Yeah, he upgraded. The farm came with a really nice house, and I think it was probably bigger. And
probably didn't have the lingering smell of burned flesh.
Probably, yeah. And I'm assuming, based on the fact that the money they got for his father's farm only covered the down payment, that's why I'm assuming it was a much nicer property. Mm-hmm. So Andrew, as an adult, was described by some people as a very dependable neighbor, someone who would help you out when you needed it. He one time helped a neighbor install a boiler in his slaughterhouse, and then he would, the neighbor, he was like, I don't know anything about boilers. And Andrew was like, well, I'm an engineer, so I'll help you do it. And then he's like, if it ever acts up, you can call me and I'll come over. And I was actually thinking, when I was reading that little anecdote, that part of it reminds me, of Connor a little bit, who is my brother-in-law. Just in the, I don't know, I feel like he's the guy that would help.
Oh, yeah, he's the, Mr. Know-How.
Yeah, he would come over and help you fix something.
One of the most generous people I've ever known. And always happy to lend a hand.
Yeah.
And just has this great wealth of knowledge of how to do a lot of things.
Yeah.
Because he's got experience.
Yeah.
Job experience plus just life experience doing all of this.
Yeah.
He's a DIYer for sure.
Yes. And I would like to also go on the record as saying this is where the comparison with Connor stops. I don't want to compare anymore. Because Andrew was also known to be notoriously impatient and disagreeable, especially when it came to anyone who disagreed with him or when he thought that he was being wronged in some way. And I have some examples for you, because I feel like actions speak louder than words.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So, when the Catholic church that he and Nellie attended had to be torn down and rebuilt, all of the members were asked to help pay for the new church. Mm-hmm. And presumably this was discussed at length, something that all of the parish members agreed to, etc. However, Andrew refused to pay his portion. And when pressed on this, because all of the other members at this point had paid their portion and they were just following up, Andrew threw the inquiring clergyman off his property, stopped going to the church, and then forbid Nellie from ever going there as well.
Well, that's, one of Jesus's main teachings there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thou shalt not pay for new buildings. Mm-hmm. I love that he forbid Nellie from going to the church as well. Good grief. Let Jarek forbid me from doing something. I feel like I've said that on here before. So, another incident. He bought some cattle from a neighbor once, and he pinned them up in a damp clover field. And 2 of the cattle died from bloat from eating damp clover, I guess. You're not supposed to feed your cattle damp food. I don't know anything about cows. So they died, and Andrew had them skinned, and he sold their hides for however much money. And then he went back to the neighbor that he bought them from and demanded a good portion of what he had paid back for the cattle. One source said half, another source said, whatever.
For 2, I guarantee you he bought more than 4. So and there's no way it should be half.
He bought 7. And the neighbor obviously refused because he's like, it's not my fault that you didn't take care of them properly and they died. This is the ultimate Karen move, right?
Yes.
I bought these things from you and then 2 of them died, and
I bought a burrito from this establishment and I ate it and it wasn't good, and now I'm sick and it's your fault and I want money back.
Yeah. That's not how that works. This neighbor would not give him any money back, and Andrew and him got into a huge argument, and Andrew just held a huge grudge against this man forever. Just was pissed off that this man wouldn't give him any money that he felt he deserved because his cows died. It's Get over yourself. Another incident. One of their neighbors, when they were living in Bath, her name was Mrs. Hart. And she used to take Nellie into town with her each week to go shopping and to deliver the butter and the eggs that they sold. Because I guess Andrew and Nellie would sell butter and eggs. But also Andrew and Nellie didn't have a car. And so this was how Nellie got to town. Mrs. Hart was just a kind person. One day in 1920, Mrs. Hart's dog wandered over near the Kehoe farm. And he was bearing a bone by the road. Not on Andrew's property, just by the road. And Andrew got annoyed by his barking and shot him. He didn't apologize for it. He didn't even tell Miss Hart until she came over and asked, hey, have you seen my dog? I haven't seen him in a while. He just said, oh yeah, I shot him because he was barking. He's bothering me. He's over there. He was barking. And Mrs. Hart, didn't... And, I feel like this was smart on her part because she probably saw something, evil in him. And this was,
you could just shoot a dog.
Well,
doing dog stuff.
Yeah. And, this is... I mean, hard to reference something that we cut out of an episode. But this is Mrs. Hart treating every man like a loaded gun. Mm-hmm. Where she was like, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to call the cops on you. But I am going to conveniently not be able to take your wife into town anymore and not have anything to do with you.
No, consider our associations ended.
Yeah. She didn't push it and she didn't want to, provoke him. Mm-hmm. But
okay.
But she was
We're done here.
Through with them. And then on another occasion, Andrew beat one of his plow horses to death because it wouldn't pull the plow. And when he was asked about it, all he said was, quote, he ought to have been killed years ago. Which I want to point out, there are humane ways of putting down your animals when they are unable to do the work you need them to, or, other ways to
just put them out to pasture.
Yeah.
Let them live out their golden years just grazing.
But in a dry field, please. Author Arnie Bernstein, among others, points out that Andrew fit the profile of a psychopath almost perfectly, according to the Hare Psychopathy Checklist, which is an assessment tool commonly used to assess the presence and extent of psychopathy in individuals.
Again, not all psychopaths are evil, horrible human beings that turn into serial killers or something.
Yeah.
All thumbs are fingers, but not all fingers are thumbs.
Oh, good job.
Thank you.
It's a good. I always say all squares are. Wait.
All rectangles are square, but not all squares are rectangles.
No, all squares. The other way. All squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are squares. Because a rectangle is just a four-sided object. Right? A square has to be... Okay.
Whatever.
I
can't brain anymore. I've had most of a whiskey.
Okay, so this psychopathy checklist is a 20-item list of perceived traits and recorded behaviors.
Do you have the 20 items?
I have some of them.
Okay.
Okay, so it's a 20-item list of perceived traits and recorded behaviors. You score it on a 3-point scale, 0, 1, or 2, and then you add it up at the end. In the United States, 35 is the standard, so 35 out of 40 possible is the standard of you're considered psychopathic. Mm-hmm. And then in the UK, it's 25 out of 40. Their bar is much lower. Some of the traits include superficial charm, grandiose sense of self-worth, lack of remorse, impulsivity. Yep, that was one of the ones I was like, that's kind of an ADD thing.
By the way, listeners, I'm shaking my head yes or no, because I've definitely, I don't know if we cut this out or not, but I definitely probably will score higher than, Hannah.
Yeah.
just because my neurodivergence.
Yeah. And I think we cut this part out too, but I was saying some of the things on here, which I didn't list the kind of more bland ones, but some of the things on here are things that are like ADHD traits. One of them was like, is prone to boredom. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I was doing these like as a joke for friends. And Jarek was like, oh, do me. And,
well,
and I was like, well,
that's definite ADHD.
Yeah, I was like, ain't that prone to boredom? I was like, well, you're kind of scoring a little high just because some of these are the ADHD. It's not, I was like, but you do have empathy. So it's,
well, and again, just because you're a psychopath doesn't mean you are an evil, horrible human being that like shoots dogs. Yeah, because they're being dogs.
Beats horses to death. Because Jarek would never do that.
No, God no.
God no.
He's got like the biggest bleeding heart I think I've ever met.
He's also literally talked about murdering people for our dog.
Yeah. Yeah, no. People are one thing. Animals, no.
Don't talk about our dog.
Well, and, you know, like lots of, we've mentioned this before on like past episodes when talking about psychopaths, that, you know, like a lot of CEOs are psychopaths. Yeah. And again, it's because I think it's that like lack of empathy thing that just makes them successful in business. They're able to make those tough calls, like the ruthless business decisions where, you know, in business a lot of times it's actually respected.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I'm sure this made him a good engineer too. I mean, like, there are plenty of studies and areas of work or whatever where you don't have to necessarily have a good like human
you need your
relationship,
a good analytical side. You don't need empathy when it comes to building.
So there are plenty of jobs that are like perfect for people like this. Okay, so impulsivity, shallow affect, lack of empathy, pathological liar.
I went through a lying phase when I was younger. It was like my acting out kind of a thing.
I look forward to that with Critter.
But no, it wasn't a pathological liar.
Yeah. Failure to accept responsibility for their own actions.
Yep.
Some notable evaluations. Lawrence Bittaker. Do you remember him? He was one of the toolbox killers.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. That fucker. He scored a 39 out of 40. Ted Bundy, also a 39 out of 40. Nice. Love that for him. And then Brian Mitchell, who was Elizabeth Smart's kidnapper, he scored a 34 out of 40. So
psycho in the UK, but not in the States.
Yep, just barely under that line.
I bet we could
fudge one of those ones and make it a 2.
Well, unofficially.
Yeah. And, like, obviously, just a disclaimer, it's an imperfect test. Like, it's not, like, a whatever. And, like, obviously, like, probably a psychologist should be administering the test, not someone like me just guessing.
Send me the test. I
will.
I'm going to do it for Shelton, too.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah, let me know what Shelton is. Okay. So, in 1924, Andrew was elected to the Bath School Board, where he served as a trustee and a treasurer for 3 years.
Did he and Nellie ever have kids?
No, they did not.
So, why does he care about the school board?
You will see.
Okay.
Part of it is I think he...
I mean, I'm not saying that people who don't have kids shouldn't care about what's going on, because even if you don't have kids, these kids are our future.
Yes.
And you want them to be educated well. Yeah. But anyway.
I think part of it was that he wanted a position of power. But
because he's a very small man.
Yes. So he's a trustee and the treasurer. So he's extremely frugal, and he would argue relentlessly for lower taxes. He really didn't like taxes. He, quote, seemed to have no use for the superintendent, which is kind of an important part of the school board, but whatever. His name is Emery Huyck. It's Huyck. I'm going with Huyck. And Andrew once told him to leave the board meetings because he wasn't needed there.
Huyck?
Yeah.
Huyck.
Huyck. Okay.
Like Buick.
Oh, okay. Oh, I guess, okay, so the Y is pronounced like a I.
That's one. Another one has whoever Willard Hike is. They pronounce it as Hike.
I'm going to go with Huyck.
I like
better.
Huyck.
Huyck is better. I also like the name Emery.
Yes, I was going to say that.
Yeah.
I really like the name Emery.
I have a cousin named Emery, but she's a girl. Not that I said that like it was a bad thing.
Hike.
That one says hike.
Hike. Hayuk.
Hayuk.
I feel like that's how I was saying it. So as Andrew was with matters in his personal life, while he's on the board, he also has no patience for anyone who disagrees with him. He wants everything his way. He wouldn't compromise. And because of his attitude, he quickly became unpopular among his fellow board members. Shocking, right? Like, can you imagine? No one liked him.
I've worked with people like that before.
And to answer your question about being on the school board, I think the taxes was like the main reason, because there's a school tax, and he is really unhappy about that.
Basically, he's just like, oh, schools are spending too much money, and that's why the taxes are so high.
Well,
so if I can cut the school spending, it should lower the school tax.
Part of his, I guess, like part of like the overall taxes was a school tax, which was like the portion of your taxes that went to pay for school shit.
Like it is now.
Yeah. And the school board determined what the school tax was, like how much of your income was taxed. And he was upset about how much he was getting taxed in general, I'm sure.
Story I'd read somewhere about a man got a job with some tech company, and like his first day on the job, he, went into some program or app or whatever, fixed some bug, and as soon as he did that, he turned in his notice. And he's like, I quit. Because apparently he was a long-time user, and that bug had been driving him crazy. So he specifically got a job to fix the bug.
Wow. That's like
that's like a
happy version of this.
Yeah. Yeah. But like no other real interest in being on the school board other than, well, I want to pay less money in taxes.
Yeah. And I feel like maybe the school board was probably the most accessible like avenue for him to do that.
And probably like
it's not like
easier to get elected to this, and then kind of also use it as a like launching pad for other positions. He's like, all right, we'll start with the school tax, and then I'll jump over here to this board and work on this tax.
Yeah, that's probably right.
I like him less than Philip's opinions, because Philip was just all talk.
Yeah,
that's fine.
That's true. In 1925, the current town clerk died, and Andrew was appointed to act as town clerk until the next election. And that election was in the spring of 1926. So he was town clerk until then, and then he ran kind of like for re-election, or like he ran for the position.
Yeah, elect me.
Yeah, elect me. But he lost that election, because people didn't like him, because he had this terrible reputation for being unlikable.
Which is funny, because at first you were describing him as like the friendly neighbor. Like, if you need a hand, I'm your guy, just come and ask.
Yeah.
So that like fake veneer is wearing off.
Yeah. Also
super charming until he doesn't get his way.
Exactly, until he doesn't get his way. So also in 1926, school taxes had reached what Andrew considered an unreasonable high. So I got to do my favorite thing here, which is converting 1926 dollars. In 1922, so 4 years earlier, The tax was $12.26 on every $1,000 of valuation of property that you owned. Easy conversion. So if your property was valued, so his property was valued at $10,000.
Okay.
So in 1922 he was paying 126. Yeah. By 1926, so the current year, due to several necessary purchases that the school board had to make, like
Probably upgrade in, like, facilities and technology and
Yeah.
whatnot, like electricity and such. You know,
I think one of them was literally like a power plant for the school or something. And this is also like, I think right when they were converting from like one room schoolhouses to, this was like what they called a
Multiple buildings.
consolidated school.
yeah, because they're still fairly rural.
Yeah, yeah. So due to these purchases, the tax had gone up to $19.80 per $1,000.
Oh, heaven forbid it's 190. Well, I mean, 120 to 190 is a bit of a jump, especially.
It's in 4 years.
But also,
You mean
like now, today,
Yeah.
120 to 190, like, yeah, that's, an extra chunk of change. But
Yeah.
with everything else being as expensive as it is, it's
Yeah.
not that big.
Yeah. So to put it in perspective, the $10,000 that his farm was valued at was approximately, or today that would be approximately $175,000. So his taxes were going from approximately $2,143, which was like the lower one, to $3,272.
So that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that today 120 to 190 is not that much of a jump, but back then 120 to 190 is a big jump.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean,
it's $1,000 difference.
yeah.
Also, his property would 100% be valued way more than.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's just doing a dollar to dollar conversion.
Yeah, yeah.
Not actual property value.
Yeah. I mean, I get this, and I get, too, that, like, I mean, he probably did not have, like, an escrow account that was, like...
I also don't enjoy
paying this out, but...
taxes.
Yeah.
But I know that they pay for important services
Yeah, and
that I would like to have.
we bought our house in October, and so we are about to come up on that time when our escrow gets, like, recalculated. And, like, we've had some years where our mortgage went up an uncomfortable amount, and you're just like, oh, well, that sucks. Oh, well. It sucks, but...
Nope,
but
you better start with the school board and just start slashing taxes there, and then just jump to different areas within the county.
But it's like, it goes up because I'm putting money into my escrow account to pay for, like, fucking property taxes and my fucking flood insurance. Like, for things that I mean, property tax, whatever, screw that. But, like, flood insurance and shit, like, shit that you need. And, like, no one was happy about the tax increase. But Andrew
Took it
naturally...
to a new level.
Well, he took it personally. Like, he saw it as, like, a personal attack. Also in 1926, that June, Nellie's aunt, because her uncle had died, began foreclosure proceedings on their property because Andrew hadn't been making any payments on their mortgage. Which I would imagine, because their family, that, like, hopefully some conversations had happened before the foreclosure. Like, I would hope that my aunt wouldn't just, like, serve me foreclosure papers.
I need you to be paying.
There would be some conversation. But the sheriff who delivered the foreclosure notice later reported that Andrew said, quote, "If it hadn't been for the $300 school tax, I might have paid off this mortgage." Which, no, you wouldn't have, but way to find someone to blame that on. So his farm is being foreclosed on. He's got these taxes that he feels like are too high, and he's lost this town clerk election. So 1926 is not Andrew's year. So they didn't, like, get immediately kicked off the property. They hung around for a bit. But throughout the rest of
Did he, like, refuse to make any more payments after that?
I guess.
Like, didn't even try to...
I couldn't really figure out, like, exactly what happened right after that.
Mm-hmm.
But through the rest of 26 and into 1927, he completely stopped working on the farm. Like, he let the land go. He cut down all of his fences. He girdled his shade trees, which I learned what that meant. It's when you, like... I don't know if it's when you tie something tight around the trunk or when you cut, like, a ring out of the trunk. But it essentially kills... Like, you cut a ring or you tie something really tight. But it kills the tree from the trunk, whatever. And he cut down all of his grapevines. And this is actually very reminiscent of...
like, basically salting the earth.
Yeah. And he actually did something very similar when he sold his father's farm. He didn't, like, ruin the farm when he sold it, but he had everything ready to go to the seller, and then he had a bunch of lumber on the land. And so he, like, priced the lumber really, really low, like a steal. And he was trying to sell it before he, like, turned the property over. And the only people around to buy it were, like, farmers. And he offered it to this one guy, and he was like, listen, man, it's a really, really, really good deal, but I have all the lumber I need. Like, I really don't need it. Like, thank you for the offer, but no, I'm not going to buy it. I feel like it would be like if someone offered me, like, a trash bag full of dog toys and socks for, like, $1, and I'd be like, thank you so much. That's a great deal, but if you look at my backyard, I have so much of that. My yard is dog toys and socks. I don't need any more. Although that's a great deal.
I'll pay you $1 to go donate that to the shelter.
Yeah, like, go, just leave it or whatever. And Andrew insisted. Like, he pestered this man until he finally was like, fine, here's your fucking $1. I'll take it. And it was essentially because he did not want the guy buying the farm to get anything that Andrew felt he hadn't paid for. Yeah. And I feel like that's what he's doing with the property, where he's saying, well, I did all this work to it, so if you're taking it back, you're not going to get anything that I did the work to make.
I did improvements, and now I'm going to make it...
Yeah.
Take it back a step.
Yes, exactly. Because that's just the kind of person he is.
Petty. Petty.
Yeah. In April of 1927, he gave away one of his best horses to his neighbor. But the neighbor, who had kind of noticed what Andrew was doing on his farm, was worried that Andrew was going to commit suicide. And the neighbor gave the horse back. And I think he gave it back in, like, an attempt to be like, no, like, you need this horse. You'll use this horse. Like, I mean, I think the neighbor had, like, very good intentions in giving the horse back. That was in April. On May 18th of 1927, around 8:45 in the morning, Andrew's neighbors were all startled when an explosion occurred on his farm. Almost immediately, the house, the barn, and all of the other buildings on the property were on fire. Several people rushed to help, including a man named Sidney Howell and a man named Melvin Armstrong. And according to them, as they approached the house, Andrew came driving off the property in his Ford pickup truck, and he was wearing a gas mask.
So he has a car now.
Yes. He's had a car for I don't know how long. And he got to them, and he said, "Don't go in there. Go down to the school." And moments later, a second explosion was heard, and the north wing of Bath Consolidated School had been blown apart. And you can look at your second picture. So one witness described it as saying, quote, "The whole walls caved outward, the roof toppled into the interior."
Well, this is really going to raise taxes.
I know. And a heavy cloud of smoke spread out in all directions. Then we heard the screams of the children.
Yep, I am mad at you.
I know, I'm sorry. You're mad at Sara.
Damn it, Sara.
Sorry.
Kidding. I love you, thank you.
So, everyone in town immediately is going to the school. Like, even people who had been going to Andrew's farm to help, like, turn around. And everyone is now running to the school. And there is, like, incredibly heartbreaking descriptions of, like, mothers who are obviously just...
I'm freaking out.
Yeah, like, looking for their children. There's descriptions of moms who are just, like, lifting insane amounts of rubble trying to find their children. So everyone in town is there. They're trying to get survivors to safety. They're trying to identify victims. They're trying to, clear out space, whatever. A man named Monty Ellsworth, who was one of Andrew's neighbors and also the author of one of the main sources that I used, he was there helping, and he offered to go home and get a rope to help pull some of the rubble. There's like a large piece of rubble that needed to be moved. And he's like, I'll go get a rope. I'll be right back. So he jumps in his truck and he's driving home. And as he's driving, he passes Andrew in his truck. And Andrew is driving towards the school. And he said, Andrew smiled and waved at him. This is a quote. When he grinned, I could see both rows of his teeth. I know. So when Andrew arrived at the school about half an hour after the explosion, he parked his truck and he called over to Superintendent Kehoe, who had been at the school. He had been giving a test when the explosion occurred and had actually gotten his class to safety and then gone back to help with the rescue efforts. He called him over to his truck, and when Hewitt came over, Andrew took out his rifle and shot into the bed of his truck, where there was a load of explosives underneath a pile of tools, nails, and shovels, and any manner of makeshift shrapnel that he could find. And the truck exploded, and it killed Andrew, Superintendent Hewitt, and 3 people standing nearby, one of whom was an 8-year-old student who had survived the initial explosion. Oh. Don't look into this because it tells you far too much about, like, the details of the victims, and it's the worst. Oh, I forgot to tell you, I do have heartwarming facts at the end of this to not make it better, but they're heartwarming facts.
I'm gonna have to watch, like, all of my critter videos.
I know, I'm sorry. When firefighters arrived on the scene, they found an additional 500 pounds of undetonated dynamite in the south wing of the school, because Andrew's plan had been to destroy the entire fucking school and kill everyone in it. And they think that the first explosion caused a short circuit in the second set of dynamite, so, like, thankfully, half of it didn't go off. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, search and rescue efforts had to be stopped until they could safely disarm and remove the 500 pounds that was left. A triage center was set up by a local doctor in his drugstore. The town hall was used as a temporary morgue. Local contractors sent all of their men to the scene to assist with efforts. The Lawrence Baking Company, which was just a local baker, sent a truck full of pies and sandwiches to feed rescuers on the scene. And then the Red Cross provided information and planning services, kept an updated list of the dead and the injured, and raised more than $5,000, which is about $89,000, to pay for medical expenses and burial costs. And that was, like, over a couple weeks.
I'm already terrified to send Critter to school when he gets older. Like, I'm already afraid to send him to school.
I know. My mom was telling me about something, and I was like, how hard was it to homeschool us when we were little? We could do it together. You gonna start a homeschool group? I was in one.
I mean, I would, yeah. There's just so many benefits, like the social things. There's the clubs, the sports, the activities, and that's not to say that you can't also still be in sports and do activities and still socialize with other kids and be homeschooled, but I know.
So when authorities went to investigate Andrew's farm, they found Nellie's burned body in a wheelbarrow behind the chicken coop. He had killed her sometime between May 16th and May 18th, and I don't know how he killed her. I'm just going to believe he shot her.
Let's go with that.
And did it quickly. I know he didn't, like, burn her to death. She was dead before that happened. There was silverware and a metal cash box piled around the wheelbarrow. He had also... forgot about this part. He had also killed both of his horses by tying their legs together and leaving them in the barn to burn to death. Jeez. Because, I know, why could he not be more of a piece of shit?
Could you not spare 2 more bullets?
I know, like...
Like, if you're gonna kill them, or... just set them free.
I know!
Like, he already cut down his fences, right? Just smack them on the ass on their way out of the barn.
He already tried to give away one of them. Like, fucking piece of shit. He had wired the house with dynamite, and he had set it on a timer to go off at 8:45 in the morning on the morning of May 18th. And that's also what he had done at the school. And so how he had done that is in the summer of 1926... the school had hired him to do electrical work over summer vacation. So he had free access to the building. And then, I don't know if instead of doing electrical work or in addition to that, he laid thousands of feet of wire and placed over 1,000 pounds of dynamite, also set to a timer. And on his property, authorities also found your last picture, which is a handmade sign attached to a fence that read, "Criminals are made, not born." Which is like the most... I just want to...
That's about passing the buck there.
I know, like, what a...
Cop-out.
Yeah, like, oh, you made me this way. Like, off. It's... You're mad about taxes.
Everything is a choice.
Like,
Everything is a choice.
and according to him, everything is someone else's fault. Like... In total, 39 children and 5 adults were killed in the explosion, not including Andrew because he doesn't fucking count for anything. 58 others were injured, and it is still the deadliest attack to ever occur in an American school. Nellie's family buried her under her maiden name, Price. Andrew was buried in an unmarked grave.
Ditch on the side of the road.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was buried in pieces. The only like mildly redeeming things that I could find. There were a few things, you know, those stories about like 9/11 where people like that were supposed to get on the plane didn't. So a group of 2nd graders, they were having story time on the opposite side of their classroom when the explosion happened, and so they were all spared because, like, had they been where they normally were, they would have been crushed by a wall, and so story time saved them. Several 6th graders were taking final exams, and they were supposed to be in their 2nd story classroom, but instead their teachers thought that the 1st floor classroom would have been better, like was better for test taking, and I presume that means that they were saved because of that. And then many students were not present because they were exempt from final exams, and this was like end of the year stuff. So tons of students weren't even at school.
Also, the whole other wing of the school was spared.
Yes.
So like, over half of the school itself did not blow up. But.
Yes. But that is the story. It's known as the Bath School disaster or the Bath School massacre.
Yeah, it's a massacre. It's not a disaster.
I mean,
it is a disaster, but disaster is something that's like, it's natural.
I think the town of
Bath... It's
an
accident.
I think the town of Bath calls it the Bath School disaster. I forget why they chose to keep it that way.
Disaster is like a bridge failure or a building collapse, not because it was, you know.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like maybe they don't want to give him... I don't know. Maybe they don't want to associate it with him and...
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
More focus on the victims and less on the perpetrator.
Do you want to hear my happy palate cleanser facts?
Oh, please.
Okay, they're all...
My kid is asleep, so I can't go and hug him.
I know, sorry. They're all about dogs, though. Okay. So... okay. This one I tested out, so I know it's true. Yawning is contagious for dogs, and research shows that the sound of a human yawn can trigger one from your dog, And it's 4 times as likely to happen when the yawn is from a person that your pet knows. And as I was telling Jarek this fact, I yawned and we were snuggling in bed with Kelly, and Kelly yawned also. He's so cute. Okay, fact number 2. A study shows that dogs are among a small group of animals who show voluntary, unselfish kindness towards others without any reward. Because of course they
dogs
do.
are the goodest.
I know. Number 3, this is what I need you to go do when you get home.
Mm-hmm.
Human blood pressure goes down when petting a dog, and so does the dogs.
Mm-hmm.
So go pet your dogs. And then finally, many puppies that are identified as pit bulls begin life with a very wrinkled forehead, which they outgrow as they age, which I just think is very cute.
Wrinkly pooches.
I'm going to look at my picture of baby Kelly and go snuggle with grown-up Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, that's...
If you want to see photos from today's episode, you can check out our Facebook and Instagram at The Tales We Tell Podcast. If you want to see pictures but don't do the social media, go to our website, thetaleswetellpodcast.com. If you want to support us and get yourself some sweet, sweet swag, you can go to our Redbubble store. We've got a couple different logos, and you can get that on anything.
Yep.
And lastly, you can always support us, but if you don't need the stuff, become patrons at patreon.com. Search The Tales We Tell. You get early access, commercial-free listening, some fun bonus content, and love notes and stickers whenever we do a little sticker buy.
Yep. I don't know. Again, everyone can blame Sara for that one.
Thank you for the story. It was a good story, but man, that one...
I know. It got really rough at the end. When I first looked it up, all I read was, like, deadliest school disaster. And I was like, man, Katy's going to kill me if I do this one. Mm-hmm. And then I started reading so much about Andrew, and I was like, wow, this guy's such a f***ing piece of shit.
Well, I think it was good the way that you did it, focusing more on him and not spending too much time, certainly not going into too much detail.
Yeah.
Like, I understand wanting to, focus on the victims versus glorifying the butthead who did this.
It was the few details that I did read were just the worst, and I didn't want to repeat them or make anyone else know of them. On a lighter note, I have picked out my topic for our 200th episode, which is coming up. Woohoo! And I haven't picked out my topic for next week, so we'll figure out what that is, and we will see you guys then. A critter goodbye.
Bye.